be starting with the concept of environmental geography. We have already covered the topics related to geomorphology in the previous sessions. Now, environmental geography, when we talk about understanding the interaction of human beings or organisms with the surroundings, that's the environment. So under this we cover various aspects of environment. We'll start with the first and the foremost, that is ecology, its concept, components and classification. So when we talk about concept of ecosystem or ecology, we understand ecology as a branch of science that deals with interaction of organisms with organisms and organisms with surroundings. So there are two kinds of interactions that we talk about. That's interaction of organism with organism and organism with its surroundings. So that is how we understand ecology. The concept was first given by Ernest Haeckel, who is considered as the father of ecology. He propounded in around 1866 the concept of ecology. Now what is the scope of ecology? Under ecology, we try to understand diverse phenomena. The first is movement of material. Under this, we try to understand the various nutrient cycles. The next is distribution of organisms. Distribution of organisms across the earth. The process and flow of food and energy. So under this, we study the various food chains, food webs and ecological pyramids. And finally, interaction of organism with surroundings. So these are the four major things that we try to understand under the scope of ecology. To understand this scope, there are three basic components that we would be covering in three separate sessions. The first important concept here is food chain, food web. So food chain and food web. The next is pyramids of energy, number and mass. And finally is the nutrient cycle. Under nutrient cycle, we will be talking about the carbon cycle, the oxygen cycle, water cycle and so on. Under food chain, we will be talking about how the primary consumers are consumed by the secondary consumers, secondary by tertiary and so on. Under pyramids of energy, we will understand energy, mass and number. We will understand how energy, mass or number is transferred from one trophic level to another trophic level. So we will be understanding the various trophic levels under these lectures. Okay, so these will be covering in separate lectures. Now moving back to the ecological hierarchy. If I talk about ecological hierarchy, let's say we start with human being. Okay, that's the easiest to understand. So I draw a human being here. And what we are trying to understand is, say, the functioning of heart. Okay, so that is one organ system. The next is the digestive tract. So that's another organ system. Next I talk about the respiratory system. So that's another organ system. So we start with organ systems. Now these organ systems together make up an organism. A group of similar organisms form population. A set of population in a specific area will form community. The next would be ecosystem. That's the composition of the living and the non-living organisms. Then biome and finally biosphere. Now when I say biome, it is a kind of accumulation of various ecosystems, or I can say it's an area dedicated to specific species that lives in a particular area. So specific species residing into a particular area would be biome. And finally you have biosphere. So ecosystem, I can say it's a kind of submergence of abiotic and biotic component, while biosphere would be an interaction of atmosphere, hydrosphere and lithosphere. So this zone would be biosphere. So this is how we understand the ecological hierarchy that exists in real world. The next is the various components of ecosystem. We'll start with the biotic and the abiotic component, as I said. Now as the name suggests, biotic means living, abiotic means non-living. So if I start classifying the abiotic factors, I can classify those as organic factors and inorganic factors. So organic factors will include chlorophyll, proteins, carbohydrates, fats, lipids, everything that is made up of organic constituents or carbon, I could say primarily. Inorganic will include air, water, soil, sunlight, temperature and components like these. Under inorganic, I can say phosphorus, hydrogen, sulfur are the primary inorganic constituents, but both organic and inorganic, along with these we try to understand the basic abiotic factors, that is air, water, soil, sunlight and temperature. Now moving on to biotic factors. Primarily we say biotic factors can be classified as plants, animals or decomposers. That is one classification. You can alternatively say autotrophs, those which can produce their food by themselves, heterotrophs, those who depend on autotrophs for food, and finally you have the decomposers which decompose the food. So autotrophs can include phototrophs and chemotrophs. Phototrophs that require sunlight to make their food, so basically green plants. Chemotrophs are colored leaves or colored plants that produce food. So you have autotrophs classified as phototrophs and chemotrophs, which are part of primary producers. And then you move on to heterotrophs. Heterotrophs can be either primary consumers, secondary consumers or tertiary consumers. Primary consumers feed on producers. For example, you have grass. So this would be grasshopper. One feeding the grasshopper can be, say, frog, and tertiary consumer can be snake. So it's a kind of hierarchy that exists. We also call it food chain. So when we understand the components of ecosystem, we try to understand the producers, the primary consumers, secondary consumers and finally the tertiary consumers. Now there are some very important relationships that exist in ecosystem. Now as you can see, I have marked two species here, the species 1 and the species 2. So there are two different species. If they are living together and both the species are benefiting, we call it mutualism. We also call it symbiosis. For example, gut fauna, that is the fauna in the stomach of an organism that helps to digest food. So that gut fauna is getting nutrition, and on the other hand it is helping an individual to digest the food. So that is the classic example of mutualism. The next is predator and parasitism. So parasites like lice, tick, so these are all parasitic insects. So they themselves are benefited, but they are harming the species on which they lie. The next is competition. Competition leads to negative impact for both the species. So both the species ultimately are harmed by competition. Commensalism is spider builds a web on a plant. So spider is getting definitely benefited by the insects coming there, but plant is neither benefited nor harmed. So it's kind of a single way system where one species is benefited and other remains neutral. So that is known as commensalism. The next is amensalism. This is negative. So you can remember it as commensalism is positive, amensalism is negative. So one species is harmed and other remains neutral. For example, small shrubs and grasses growing under the footage of a large tree. So what would happen? this tree would block all the sunlight for these small shrubs growing below it. So its shade will block the sunlight from reaching this. So these shrubs are negatively affected or harmed, but this tree is neither benefiting nor getting harmed. So it's a kind of negative impact for one species and neutral impact for another species. And finally is neutralism, where both the species live together but none of them is either benefited or harmed. Besides this, there is another relationship which is known as mimicry. In this, one species try to adapt to the appearance of the surrounding area. So they basically kind of camouflage themselves, I can say rather, and that helps them to protect from predators. So that is another common relationship that exists. So here we are trying to understand the various relationships between two organisms. So if one organism, this is species 1, species 2. So if one is getting benefited and both are getting benefited, we call it symbiosis or mutualism. If one is getting negatively affected, we call it parasitism. If both are negatively affected, it is competition. If one is positively affected but the other remains neutral, it is commensalism. If one is negatively affected, other remains neutral, it is amensalism. And where both of the species are neither benefited nor harmed, we can say it would be neutralism. Next is the classification of ecosystem. Now when we talk about classification of ecosystem, there are 6 basic criteria based on which we can classify ecosystem. So it is first classification of ecosystem based on stability, habitat, ecoline, use, source of energy, stages of development and stability. Let's move in the backward order. So stability, it can be simple or complex. If I say simple, the best example would be aquarium. If I say complex, a good example would be coral reef, where there are a lot of species. So when there are a lot of species, all the species get a chance for either getting, for some of them might be primary consumers, some of them might be secondary consumers. So there is a huge variety or diversity. So this kind of system is more stable as compared to a simple system which is less stable. So this is the first classification based on stability. The next is stages of development. We call it, the first stage is early succession, where the species start to establish itself. Then is the mature stage, which is the next stage to early succession. Then you have mixed stage, which is an overlap of early succession and the mature stage. And finally inert stage, that is not dependent or not affected by most of the phenomena, because it is kind of a dead area due to a kind of mass destruction that has happened. It can be a volcanic activity, severe flood or earthquake in that area. So any natural disaster can lead to area with mass destruction, and that would become a stage of development which would be inert. Now based on sources of energy, I can classify it as unsubsidized and subsidized. Unsubsidized is the region which does not require additional energy. So no additional energy is required, and the main energy here is sun. Subsidized requires additional energy besides the natural energy, that is sun. So under subsidized we classify it as natural, human and fuel subsidized. So when I say natural subsidized, besides sun, what can be kind of other additional energies? That can be wind, it can be tide, it can be waves. So these are kind of other natural energies. Human subsidized, when I say human subsidized, it includes agriculture, cropping areas, grazing lands, etc. And these contribute around 41% of the total area. Then is your fuel subsidized, usually created in artificial atmospheres like laboratories, etc. So where you are demonstrating use of fuel for energy purposes. So these three we have discussed. The next is based on use. So based on use, I can say it can be either cultivated or non-cultivated. So cultivated will include the cropping areas where you are growing wheat, rice, sugarcane, any crop. Non-cultivated would basically include forest land, woodlands, grass areas, or naturally occurring vegetation patterns. I could say naturally occurring patterns of plant or flora would be non-cultivated, while cultivated would include the vegetation patterns that you are trying to cultivate in that area. It can be plantation cropping, it can be extensive farming, intensive farming. So all those would be covered under cultivated area. The next is ecoline. Ecoline is a transition zone between the ecosystem of the plant. So you have one ecosystem and you have another ecosystem. So region between that would be known as ecoline. So it is basically a transition area. Under ecoline we talk about four basic criteria. So we move from mountain, high mountain to arid areas. The next is equatorial, hot area towards the cold area. Then we move along the height of a mountain. So that is another thing, and finally you move from the area of high moisture to low moisture. So the thing I can explain it is simple. So you have, so moving from equator to poles is one set. So equatorial hot to cold areas. Then along the mountain you would be moving from the base of the mountain to the top of the mountain. Then with the areas of high humidity to areas of relatively low humidity across the globe. And finally you would be moving from the region which is mountainous to a region which is desert. So these are the various kind of ecolines that exist in the ecosystem. And finally you have based on habitat. Now based on habitat is the most detailed classification that we must know. Now to start with, it is very simple. Based on habitat, I can say we can broadly classify it as terrestrial and aquatic. So you must be very familiar with these names. Terrestrial means those living on land and aquatic means those living in water. So if they are living in fresh water, we call this study as limnology. And if they are present in marine water, we call it as oceanography. Okay. Now terrestrial is on land, aquatic is on water, the first important classification. Now under terrestrial we talk about 5 basic areas. So under terrestrial we talk about forest, grassland, mountains and deserts. So forest, you can have evergreen forest. What does evergreen mean? All the leaves at a given time. So there are various species of tree that exist. So at a given time in the forest, you would never see a kind of region with leaves that are all shed, because all the trees fell their leaves in different seasons. So you will see it green across the year. So that's why it is known as evergreen. Next is deciduous. They shed their leaf in a particular season. Now you have conifers. Those are on the high mountain areas. The next is grassland cultivation. So grassland, you have the various grasses. The most common grasslands that we talk about are either savannas or prairies. So prairies are the name given in North America. Then you have pampas in South America, and equivalent in different areas of the world that we'll cover under world geography. And then you have savannas with few trees and intermittent grasses. So you have few trees off and on. You have mountain vegetation. Under mountain vegetation, it appears it comes along high altitudes. So as you move towards the higher altitudes, the vegetation pattern changes towards conifers. And finally you have desert vegetation, which is mainly in form of cactus. or where leaf converts into spikes and stem converts into succulents. So you have this as the desert vegetation with lack of water or a kind of very arid and dry conditions. The next is aquatic. Under aquatic we classify it as freshwater, marine water and benthic. So benthic is which occurs towards the lowest level of the ocean body. The organisms that live in the benthic area are known as benthos. So these organisms appear towards the lowest area of the region. And the next is freshwater. Freshwater constitutes around 0.8% of the area and 0.009% of the freshwater resources of the world. Now, freshwater can be classified as lentic, lotic and wetlands. So, wetlands are the areas which are near to the water body and are kind of diverse in flora. Lotic is an example of fast flowing regions where river is in its peak phase, so it's very fast flowing area. Those are lotic areas, and lentic areas are slow moving waters like ponds, lakes. Those would be all lentic bodies. Lotic bodies would be fast flowing water bodies like rivers. So these are the basic moving bodies that we talk about. Now under these we can also classify it as pelagic. Then you have littoral and riparian. When I say littoral, it is towards the shallow waters. When I say pelagic, it's towards the deep waters, and riparian is towards the very near to the water body. So these are the three things that we can classify again under lentic. Now coming back to marine water, we have the biggest description here. So first you have the salt marshes where you have the accumulations of the salt towards the edges. Then you have the estuary. Now when the river meets into the ocean, it usually meets in the form of delta. So a main river coming through try to distribute into various distributaries. It breaks down into various distributaries and finally merges with the ocean water. But in some cases it directly merges into the ocean body. So that is known as estuary. Now estuaries usually have problems related to salinity and sedimentation. Then you have the intertidal zone, that's the zone between the two tides. You have the profound area. Profoundal area is the very deep ocean areas. When I say profoundal areas, it is usually have the cold seeps and the hot zones. So hot zones are the hydrothermal vents. From these hydrothermal vents, you have kind of gases and ashes coming out. Cold seeps usually comprises of methane and hydrogen sulfide. Then finally you have the pelagic zone and the oceanic zone. The oceanic zone is the shallow zone while pelagic zone is the deeper zone. Now marine water constitutes around 71% of the ocean area with 97% of the water, but most of the water, as you know, is saline here. So oceanic is the shallow water zones. Now shallow water zones can be either sandy, those can be rocky. If the beach is rocky, the region would be rocky. And finally you have coral reefs in the oceanic zone. And towards the pelagic zone, you have kind of deeper waters. It is further divided into two zones, that is the photic zone and the aphotic zone. The photic zone or the non-photic zone, as the name suggests, photic means light. So the zone till which light reaches is the photic zone, and beyond that is known as the non-photic zone. So photic zone again has two varieties. You have the zooplanktons and you have the phytoplanktons. So phytoplanktons are the green plants and zooplanktons are the small organisms that live here. And under non-photic zone you have bigger organisms, bigger whales and bigger animals which do not require actually a direct sunlight for their exposure. So these are the two classification that we try to understand under ecosystem which is based on habitat. So in this session we have covered the components of ecosystem, the concept and the classification for ecosystem. In the next class we will be talking more about the various three concepts, that's the food chain, food web, pyramids of energy, mass and number, and finally the nutrient cycle. You can subscribe to our channel for further updates.